It looks like former Michigan defensive captain Joe Bolden has taken a job down at Ohio State. I want to talk about that in this video. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions 76 Sports. First of all, please like the video, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel. This video is entitled, Who is Joe Bolden and why do we care if he coaches at Ohio? It'll be some iteration of that. Well, so we know that sports are on hold right now because of this coronavirus pandemic / epidemic, but that doesn't stop me from shooting videos on Michigan football, and hopefully this thing will be over by the time the fall rolls around. So I saw an interesting article a couple of weeks ago on my new smartphone, my LV50, which gives me articles on Michigan football and athletics pretty much daily. But this particular article really caught my interest. It's entitled, it's entitled Michigan Football, What Joe Bolden Going to Ohio State Says About Harbaugh's Culture. I think I messed that title up. It actually says, the title actually is Michigan Football, What Joe Bolden to OSU Says About Harbaugh's Culture. That's kind of a weird title. It should say, if I wrote it, it would say, What Joe Bolden Going to OSU Says About Harbaugh's Culture. In any case, that's what the title is, and it was written by Chris Peterson and this was on Fansided. So I was inspired by Chris's article, and I thought that I would make a video about it. So here we go. So it looks like Joe Bolden has gone to coach at Ohio State. So first of all, who was Joe Bolden and why should we care? Joe Bolden was one of the players that Jimmy inherited from Brady Oak, the excellent recruiter who couldn't develop his talent. So if you go back to my video entitled Has Michigan Football's Ohio Pipeline Dried Up, I believe that Joe Bolden was one of the players that I cited that Brady Hoke recruited from Ohio. So Joe Bolden was a senior during the 2015 season, and I have vivid memories of Joe Bolden in that unfortunate Michigan State game, the Blake O'Neill blocked punt game, which we should have won, but which was snatched from us by the football gods. Early on in that game, which was a really good game, and I remember that game. It was good to see our team finally stand up and punch Michigan State back in the mouth, and that's aside from the blocked, or should I say the muffled punt, that's what was great about that game, is that our team really stepped up after years and years of getting pushed around by Sparty. Our team really stepped up and punched Michigan State back in the mouth. But Joe Bolden, in that first half, he put a hit on Connor Cook and laid Connor Cook out, and the refs called targeting on Joe Bolden, and Joe Bolden got ejected from that game for that targeting call. And I think that that was a big loss for us that day on defense. And I think, now don't quote me on this, but I think the year before, Joe Bolden might have been the kid who put the spike in the turf at Spartan Stadium. Don't quote me on that, but I think he might have been the kid. But he was a passionate kid. He played hard, and he played with a lot of heart, as evidenced by that Michigan State game that day where he got ejected. And I really didn't follow Joe after he left the Michigan program, but it's surprising. It's somewhat surprising as a former Michigan player and as a captain that he would go down to Ohio State. And then on the other hand, it's not surprising seeing as he is an Ohio kid, so he's from that state. And here's another thing. He was also one of Greg Madison's kids. So when Jimmy took over the program, DJ Durkin was the defensive coordinator, but I don't know what agreement was made, but Greg Madison stayed on as our defensive line coach. And Greg Madison was the defensive coordinator under Brady Hoke. And so, Joe Bolden was a Brady Hoke kid, and I'm sure Greg Madison probably had a role in recruiting him, coached him up. He was one of Greg Madison's kids. So, Joe Bolden might have been looking for a job, and Greg Madison probably said, hey, don't go back up to the program under Jimmy's watch. Come here. We have a spot for you here in the Ohio State program. So that's probably how that went down. But the question Chris Peterson's article asks is, what does it say about Jimmy's culture, or the culture that Jimmy has created within the Michigan football program, that would allow a former player and a former a former captain, to go down and coach for our #1 rival. When you think about Michigan alumni, and particularly the former players, what you normally think about is a brotherhood, a very, very strong brotherhood. And for some reason, I'm thinking about Charles Woodson, who is also an Ohio native, and I'm thinking about Charles' reaction after this year's blowout loss to Wisconsin. Charles, like the rest of us, was stunned that our team got blown out up at Camp Randall by the Badgers. But I guess what I'm saying is, in years past, wearing the maize and blue, it meant something. Having played for the team and having put on one of the winged helmets, that meant something. And that, those feelings about Ohio State, they meant something. And, the question that Chris Peterson's article is asking is, does it still mean something? Does that rivalry still mean something to the point where players, when they leave the Michigan program, they will do everything in their power to not go work for Ohio State? Now, Ohio State is one of the premier programs in the country now. So, one could argue that for starting one's coaching career, maybe going to work in the Ohio State program is a no-brainer. But, I think the question is, has that loyalty to the Michigan program been lost? Has that hatred for the Scarlet and Gray and for Columbus and for the Buckeyes, has that hatred been lost in Jimmy's program? And, in the same way that the Ohio State players hate the Michigan players, and the way that the Ohio State players hate the maize and blue, has that hatred for them been lost somewhere in the program that Jimmy has created. So that's the question that Chris Peterson's article asked about Joe Bolden going down to Ohio State, and that's the question I'm going to pose to you, the viewer. Do the Michigan players hate the Ohio State program enough now, and has a level of complacency set in to the Michigan football program as it relates to Ohio State, and or has some of the loyalty been lost in terms of former Michigan football players and how they feel about the program? And is that due to what Jimmy has created there in Ann Arbor, in Schembechler Hall, and in the Big House? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe to the channel. And once again, I want to thank all of the rabid and passionate and hungry Michigan fans who have supported this channel up to this point, and everyone who has watched my content, shared my content, and everyone who has subscribed. I want to thank you. And with that, always remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I will talk to you the next time. Go Blue.